Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about the full official trailer that dropped for Season 3 of Marvel's Runaways. Obviously, if you have not seen it already, I'll include a link to it in the description down below. But a lot of interesting things. Obviously, we got more expanse on what we saw in the teaser. Obviously, it seems like they're making more of a point to show that there's kind of like multiple threats going on at once. There's the whole thing with the Gaborums, in particular, kind of the royal family and everything, but at the same time, it's everything with Elizabeth Hurley, who's playing someone named Morgan, which my mind immediately goes like, as in like Morgan Le Fay? Is that the angle they're going down with that? I'm not sure. But it doesn't seem like those threats are connected. It does seem like they are kind of separate things. I think it's going to be kind of similar to how Season 2 was kind of like, secretly the Gaborum thing was kind of happening in the background, whether no one really realized it or not. But it was like, obviously the kids versus their parents is kind of main thing, but eventually it grew into more like, oh, at the end it's like there's actually this whole threat of the Gaborums and everything, which obviously goes back to the whole conversation. Who is the fourth in? Is it going to be in one of the kids? My mind was always kind of, after Season 2 was kind of like, okay, so maybe it's in Carolina's mom, but then it comes down to the question of, well, it depends on who the baby daddy was. If it was Julian, then there's a good chance that might not be the fourth. That might straight up just be a Gaborum baby. Or if it's Frank's kid, then it could be a good chance that maybe their child got possessed. Whatever the case may be. I thought it was kind of interesting too, because we see that basically it seems like almost all the parents, with the exception of Alex's parents, are possessed, because we see his mom is in jail at one point, so I don't know if that's where she's going to end up spending a lot of the season. There's everything with his dad, who is with them at one point in time talking about this upcoming threat and everything, which, once again, I'm curious to find out what this whole Morgan thing is, because some guy pops up and is like, oh, she's caught between her dimension she's in and yours. So it's like, was she sealed in there by Tina? Is this something related to Nico's family? Is this like a long-running thing? I wonder, is the season going to be divided up like that, where it's like the first half is 100% dealing with this Gaborum thing, and then the Morgan stuff is the second half? Or is it kind of they bleed over, or are they kind of all happening at the same time? It makes you wonder, because the conversation was like, yeah, but we got another problem, Morgan. So it is definitely all happening at the same time. The question is, how much is it happening at the same time? Is it a full-blown, both are happening at the same time, or what? Because it doesn't seem like she has a full grasp in this world, because it seems like she needs Nico to kind of fully awaken, to, I guess, fully bring her over, or at least kind of be like the anchor / linchpin to kind of release whatever army she's trying to bring over. Because you see at like one point, like some gooish like figure is kind of trying to come through, so either that's just the barrier, or that's what they look like trying to come through. Because it seemed interesting, and like this trailer seemed like, because even the teaser kind of focused on Morgan a lot, and it seems like this trailer kind of focused on her a lot too, especially because we're tying in the whole cloak and dagger situation, which is neat. Apparently, whatever it is that Nico did, I guess she started kind of tapping into her power more, which obviously I brought up in the teaser. It's something we got glimpses of last season as well, that darkness, which I guess that darkness is connected to Morgan, or whatever connection that Nico has to Morgan. Maybe that's what that darkness stuff is. Maybe it's like a once in a generation peak, because it seems like that's something only Nico has and not Tina. And the question is, well, why is that? So because Tina didn't display any of that. I mean, to be fair, she can use a device and everything, but maybe it's a thing of like the wand acts as more of a way of channeling your power, and Nico could actually have full-blown powers without it. It's just that staff kind of helps keep her in check. Maybe that's kind of the storyline they're going down with. Another angle I thought was kind of interesting, since I brought up Alex, is when you actually notice, it's interesting, he's actually not in the trailer a lot. The fact is that you see him pop up here and there in the background, so I wonder, is he kind of off on his own to a certain extent this season, or it just could be a cut like that. But it's like when you get a lot of the group shots, Alex isn't there, so I think that's kind of fascinating. What that really might mean, we'll have to wait and see. But obviously, circling back to Cloak and Dagger, which, like I said, I'm so excited to see what that is about. I feel like that might be later in the season, their introduction, because it seems like they're going to be closely tied to the Morgan story. Because, like I said, my understanding is they're only going to be in one episode. I hope it's more, but I'm pretty sure it's only going to be like a one-episode crossover. But I like the fact of the matter is, because it's also interesting, because obviously we're dealing with like, this is their first time dealing with other people with, special situations, because obviously, whether it be Nico or Gert or Molly, having superpowers, or in Carolina having superpowers, we're meeting other teenagers about our same age who also have superpowers too. And that's the same thing for Tandy and Ty, they've never met anyone their own age with power. It's actually kind of interesting when you actually think about it in retrospect. Like, they've both had to deal with sucky adults in their life, so it's just kind of interesting. And I think maybe that's a reason why we're bringing these particular groups together in that certain regard, you know? So I think that's fascinating. It's also interesting too, because there's one point in a trailer where you see that Chase has a beard. So at one point, it seems like Carolina's there because she wakes up, because it's like, because obviously it seemed like they were going to possess Chase and his mom, but it's like, well, what were they going to do with Carolina? She's half Gaborium. So it makes me think like maybe they were going to like rewrite her, kind of get rid of her, give her body to someone else. Maybe that's what they were planning, but it seemed like Carolina got away. Maybe her and Chase were on the run for a while before they end up finding their way back to the group, because it's like, well, we can't directly go to them or we'll put them in danger, maybe. But like I said, it's just interesting because like, it just see him with like full beard and everything. It seems like there was a good time lapse in between, you know. So I mean, not less that is the thing of like, oh, maybe he was possessed at one point in time and then he was unpossessed. Maybe it's a thing. I mean, it seems like there's gonna be a big thing of like, well, who's possessed? Who's just playing coy? You know, who's lying in wait and waiting for the opportunity to strike? There's also the whole situation of Carolina, because like it seems like obviously this whole Morgan thing is adding a complicated nature to Carolina's relationship, which is obviously interesting, because her and Nico, because like Carolina's the one that kind of had all those secrets because she was secretly meeting with her dad a lot last season. So it's kind of like Nico, because Carolina was like, how far is too far? Basically, what lines will you not cross? So I guess she kind of pushes that tone of like kind of like the evil within her is kind of like manifesting, and I guess it's pushing her to do some very drastic and terrible stuff, you know. That's, you know, because she, if I remember correctly, because it's been a while since I season 2, literally been almost like an entire year, she killed all those people that came in to attack them, if I remember correctly. She basically turned them all to dust, if I remember correctly, when she went in evil mode. So we might get more glimpses of that this season. But like I said, in general, I'm curious to see, like, obviously, like how Cloak and Dagger fit into that story, and you know what this means for their story. Like, obviously, because we know we're not getting a third, you know, Cloak and Dagger, sadly, you know, not unless something ends up changing in the future. Which, speaking of that, it seems like this is the final season of Runaways, which caught me by surprise, because nothing, well, somewhat by surprise, because nothing prior to now had really said that, oh, this is the third and final season. I think this was a last minute decision, which I'm not too surprised by. What I meant by was that, because obviously that was a conversation I've had recently about like, okay, obviously with the shift in Marvel TV, what does this mean for all the current running stuff? We saw the end of Cloak and Dagger. We know that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is ending, you know, summer of 2020 with the final season. So it seems like Runaways is kind of in that same regard, which is also interesting considering the whole Hellstrom situation. But maybe that being on Hulu puts it in a different situation, which is interesting considering the fact is that this is on Hulu too. But maybe it's kind of like an old way of things. Maybe Hellstrom is going to be more connected to the MCU, even though it's on Hulu, you know, because that might be something they do for the more mature MCU related material going forward. Like I said, it depends on how that all plays out. So, but it kind of makes me wonder, was this always planned to be the final season? I don't think it was, but maybe it was. Maybe this ends off in a very conclusive note where it's like there is room for a fourth season, but everything gets closed off to you're like, okay, I'm satisfied. Like, even though I want more of it, at the very least, in a sense, you can think Cloak and Dagger ends off on a conclusive enough note where everything's kind of tied up. Obviously, there's more Ty and Tandy stories that's out there. Obviously, this season of Runaways is proof of that, them kind of still going out there on adventures and stuff like that. So it turns into that thing. So I hope that isn't a thing of like, yeah, this is the final season. I kind of like, what I mean is it's probably going to have a little bit of a Jessica Jones like final season of how like there's definitely like room for more where you can see the story keep going, but it has a conclusive enough ending, but still kind of having a very open-ended ending. Maybe we'll have a similar thing in Runaways case as well, but I'd kind of prefer if everything was like, if this is going to be the final season, then make it so that everything is kind of closed up, you know. So we'll see ultimately how, you know, everything ends up playing out. I didn't even talk about it either, but I thought it was pretty dope that we actually see that Gert and Old Lace's connection is kind of becoming even stronger, to the point it almost seems like Gert can probably kind of like see through Old Lace's eyes, in particular kind of control her. I guess it's a thing of like their brains coming together. It's interesting. I should also note this because if from the little bit I know about the Runaways, I think there's actually different groups of them. So like the cast of characters we're following in this show so far, these 3 seasons, isn't the same cast always. I think it's kind of like, if you're familiar with the TV show Misfits, it's a thing where the team roster changes up quite a bit. I mean, to be fair, across all the boards, like whether it be like the Defenders, the Avengers, the Young Avengers, like all groups in the MCU, and I think this applies to DC as well, but since we're focusing on Marvel, we'll stick to Marvel. All those groups end up changing up their roster like all the time anyway, so I think it's kind of the same thing. But you know, that my mind was like, oh, you can end up, technically you can pick up this property by following a different group of characters, maybe potentially kind of doing like a bit of a Misfits thing, if that's, I don't know if that'd be applicable in this case. Whatever. Once again, I'm just getting too ahead of myself. I'm very excited to see what this 3rd and final season has in store for us. In the comments down below, I love to get to know your thoughts on the trailer. I like to know what you want / expect to see in this 3rd and final season. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good